The scriptures, the Bible, open with the book of Genesis. And that book itself opens with an account of creation, of how God created the heavens and the earth, separated light from darkness, water from dry land, created the birds, the animals, and the creatures of the sea. And finally, the great crescendo of his creative genius was the creation of man. Man and woman, of course, Adam and Eve. And that's a story that we read at the very beginning of the Easter Vigil. That liturgy there is a journey through our Christian faith, from its origins to that great, great moment of resurrection, which is at the heart of the Easter ceremonies. And so quite obviously there's a cosmic dimension to that story. The Christian story, with its profound origins in the history of the chosen people, is inserted into the history of the cosmos. We are not insignificant. The resurrection of Jesus is a crucial moment in the relationship between God and humanity. Christmas is very different. The gospel accounts of Matthew and of Luke begin with a charming story of a birth pretty much like any other, in very humble circumstances in the town of Bethlehem, situated, as I think I mentioned last week, in time and in space. Mary and Joseph and their child. And very few people are aware of this event. The shepherds, of course, came prompted by the angels, announcing to them the great news that God had fulfilled his promises. And we know that Simeon and Anna in the temple intuited that there was something unique about this child, that all those pledges that God had given his people over the centuries were suddenly coming to fulfillment at that very moment. And even the epiphany, the revelation, which the wise men were privy to and which we will be celebrating with great éclat in 4 days' time, remains still an intimate event. There were just the wise men and perhaps those who came in their retinue with them, and indirectly King Herod was aware that a rival had been born. But for the vast majority of people, life simply went on. And it was a long time before the significance of this birth in Bethlehem, and even the significance of the visit of the wise men, took on the theological significance which make of these events key moments on the faith journey of every Christian and among the greatest solemnities in the Christian calendar. This week we read the Gospel of John, the prologue or the overture to his account of the life and teaching of Jesus of Nazareth. And it is very similar to the creation account in the first chapter of the book of Genesis. It has a cosmic dimension. It is situated beyond time and space. It focuses on the divinity of God, and indeed that divine dimension to the Word made flesh, the flesh, in fact, of Jesus of Nazareth, who through his resurrection became the Christ. And already It's on that Christ figure that John is focused in his prologue to the gospel. Paul was later to say that Jesus was the new Adam. And it's very much in that light that John sees the mystery of the incarnation, which is represented to us in the birth of Jesus of Nazareth. The gospel today, we seem to have difficulty grappling its significance. It's nothing like the simple and appealing domesticated story of the birth of Jesus in the stable or of the visit of the wise men to Mary and Joseph in Bethlehem. It's more the elaboration of an idea. But what a powerful idea it is. The God who communicates with his people has sent his very word into the world to tell us more about him and to tell us more about ourselves and the destiny that awaits us. The Word became flesh. God has taken on our human condition, has become one of us, so that, as Irenaeus of Lyon, one of the early church fathers, said, we should become more like God. And sometimes we don't reflect on the divine dimension in each and every one of us. We're told that our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit. We're told that from the moment of our baptism, of our initiation into the Christian journey of faith, that we are born into the death of Jesus Christ. And indeed, from the moment of our baptism, all of us are known as Christians, as belonging to Christ. Are you a Christian? We're sometimes asked. Many of us avoid that question, but from time to time we do own up and admit, yes, we are imperfect ones as it so happens. But we know that we are marked already from the very beginning of our journey as our parents take us away from the baptismal font, that we are already at that stage adopted sons and daughters of a loving God. And it's that reality that's at the center of John's nativity story, of John's story of the beginnings of Jesus Christ, of John's story of his origins in heaven and of his work on earth. John ends his great account by telling us that from Jesus we have received grace upon grace. And as we advance on our own, often hesitant, often stumbling, often difficult journey of faith, we become more and more like him. Because each sacrament that we receive, confirmation, the Eucharist, in some cases holy orders, in the case of most of you, matrimony, we become more like Christ, more closely configured to his true nature, which is both human and divine. But the greatest way in which we identify with Jesus and become like him is by following his footsteps and by living in the way that John, both in his gospel and in his letters, encouraged us to do, namely, to live with love, to be receptive of it as given by God and by those who love us, but to return that love by cherishing the company of friends and family, and also by striving to love God. And I think that That completes the Christmas picture. We have meditated on the Nativity. We will be joining the company of the wise men in a couple of days' time. We have been in the company of the shepherds. We have seen how Simeon and Anna, on our behalf, welcomed Mary, Joseph, and Jesus into the temple. And now, John has made it abundantly clear to us that the Jesus story is not just another historical event. It is, in fact, cosmic in its significance. It embraces the whole of creation. It alters forever the profile of human history. But the most important thing of all is that Jesus, who has visited us, finds a place in your heart and mind.